welcome back to my guitar channel. I'm Dave, and today we're going to talk a little bit about music stores, about sales, about techniques, and if you are a store owner, a manager, or someone that works in musical instrument sales, I think you'll find this video today very beneficial. So today I started off my video playing this Epiphone Masterbuilt EF500R. Solid spruce top, rosewood solid, rosewood back and sides, mahogany V-neck shape, which I love, which is one of the reasons why I got this guitar. And I believe when they first came out, they were like $8.99 or $7. They were somewhere in the $7.99 to $9.99 range. I can't remember. Great guitars. They made them for a very limited time, like this. That came with a case, the hybrid case that you can kind of see back here. But anyways, so yeah, they came with that case. And the reason why I started playing it and brought it out today was, number one, that song that I wrote in the beginning here that you just heard me play was something that I would always use to demo guitars. I think acoustic guitars love the sound of G. Even if you have a capo on, you can put it up to B flat, and that open sound just sounds great and is very beneficial to selling guitars. E chords are not very good for selling guitars, but somehow G's are. I think has something to do with the tuning. Anyways, a friend of mine recently, when I say recently, maybe 2 years ago, went down to a music store in the Boston area, and I was with him, and we saw exactly one of these. Now, they haven't made the guitar since 2008, so the store had to have had it at least 7 years. Of course, my friend being with me, I told him what the store had into the guitar, because I remember the cost of it. And my buddy went over and made an offer on the guitar. They came back with a counter offer that wasn't bad, but for a guitar that's been sitting there for 7 years, and here's a guy who's was his first time in the store and my first time in the store, and he drove quite a distance to get to this store. They basically they said no, he said no, and he walked out of the store. Well, first he says to me he got to run, he had an appointment. And I was still in the store, and I proceeded to talk to the people that ran and owned the store. And I asked them why they didn't get his name and number. And they said, well, that's kind of car dealerish, car salesman. Okay. But I think he wanted that guitar. Like, you guys could have worked something out. It's been in the store for 7 years. I'll get to that point why that's very important. Because a lot of stores make mistakes when it comes to this thing. And we're going to get to that. But for right now, it's been in the store for 7 years at least. And because they stopped making it in 2008, which means that guitar could have been there since 2006 or 7 when it was, in the height of its, or even 2005. So, I mean, it could have been in the store for, 10 years at the most. So we know it's been in the store for 7 to 10 years. And they basically were like, well, that's kind of like car salesman. And I said, well, no. And first of all, car sales guys are great at their job. That's like, if you're a great salesman, that's the best thing to get in the business for. Anyways, what happened was my buddy then called me up the next week, because he usually gets 1 day to run around. He takes care of his mom. And he said, let's go to this place up in Lexington I've never been to. It's called the Music Emporium. And so we went there. Beautiful instruments everywhere. Very expensive instruments. But beautiful. If you're going to buy an acoustic and you want to make a real commitment to owning a gorgeous guitar, I mean, that store is, to me, that would be the store. It's a great store. Reminds me of like an upscale version of McCabe's in Santa Monica in Los Angeles. McCabe's is a very well-known store. But I found this place was much more high end. It was really focused on the high end. And anyways, so what ended up happening was he was interested in the guitar. He talked to the guy, and lo and behold, they exchanged information. And the guy really didn't qualify my buddy enough, and but he did. My buddy did love the guitar, and they called, and then my buddy called me up a week later and said, "I'm going back to that store. I want to talk to that guy again." I said, and I couldn't go at that point. I said, "Go ahead." And he came home with a $3,600 acoustic Collings guitar, followed by about 2 or 3 weeks later buying another one for around the same price in a Dreadnought. So here's a guy who walks into a store and he spent $7,200 within a month. Now, my buddy has what I call gear acquisition disease or gear acquisition syndrome. They call it GAS or GAD, depending on who you talk to. He loves to buy gear. And, of course, this isn't going to sound crazy. We all do. I mean, it comes with the territory of playing guitar. Playing guitar and smoking cigars and owning guns, it's like all the same things to me, because everyone that does those three things, they want to collect. They want to try as many different as they can, and they want to own as many. I mean, it becomes a collection disease. They love to collect, and it's like, when are you going to use, and you hear it all the time from girlfriends, when are you going to use them? When are you going to do this? And I've always said, managing a store and dealing with customers, listen, if there was a wife or a girlfriend there, I'd be like, you know how many guitars a guitar player needs? Always one more. And that's the truth. Now, if you're a working musician, it's more than true, because what happens is you need them for different sounds, and we know why we like the different guitars and what they're for, and why we would own them. If you look at players like like some of the main players, in guitar rock history, Keith Richards. I mean, there's this one main, and then he has his peripheral guitars that he uses on this song and that song and whatnot. But that's a whole different thing. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about this whole mentality of people thinking that it's a car salesman technique to want to get involved in a conversation with somebody, exchange numbers. And I also want to talk a little bit about, different stores, where you walk in and they're just saying, like, "Can I help you find something?" And it's like, which is a turnoff, and people hate that. And so they equate the car salesman technique of getting somebody's information and finding out what they want as, "Can I help you?" So the first thing I'd like to start right now is talk about qualifying the customer. So when a customer walks into the store, we'll do this one first, and then we'll talk about when a phone call comes in. When a customer walks into a store, it's nice to know who we're dealing with as a salesperson. Now, you can look at it from the perspective of, I'm bothering the guy coming in, whatever it is. But just imagine if you went into Home Depot and you walk in and the person walks up to you and says, "Hey, what are you working on? I'd love to help you find it." You'd be like, "Oh, friggin' hey. Yeah, here's what I'm working on. Here's what I need to get." And then imagine if they had it. Or if he didn't have it, imagine if he could get it for you and just ship it to your house that day or the next day. You'd be thrilled. So you have to have this mentality of people when they walk into a store. Yes, some people are just looking, but we're all just looking. Some people are not just looking. Find out where they came from. Did they drive an hour to get to your store? Or did they drive 3 hours? Or did they drive 10 minutes? Did they come just to get strings? Great. But what kind of relationship do you have with this person? thing I want to find out is, what are they doing? Are they recording? Are they playing in a band? If so, find out where. Find out. the You're in business to make money. You're in business to provide a service to people in your neighborhood and the world, and we'll get to that. But if you have a brick and mortar, your business is to provide a service to the neighborhood. You can either be great at that service, or you can be just somebody there as a cashier just to take people's money and let them do all the deciding. What do I need you for? At that point, I'm staying home and just ordering it online, which is what I do most of the time anyway, because when I go into a store, nobody has these chops to be able to say, hey, what are you looking for? Well, I play in a band. Oh, you do? What's your band? If you show interest in what these people do and actually have an understanding of what the hell you're doing in the business of selling guitars and musical instruments and mic cables and all that stuff, then you have to understand you're there to provide a service. You're there to be the guy for that guy. Now, I can't tell you enough that if you were to go to someone's show that came into your store and you went to go see them, how much he would go and tell people, hey, that guy works at that store and he came out to my show, he supports. That's what you're there for. You're there to be that guy. If you want to just show up at a job and take people's cash, well, I can hire a cashier at minimum wage. What does the store need you for? And if the store thinks that's the way it should be run, what do they need management for? What are they doing? What is the management doing? What tools is the management giving the people to help the customer? So if you find out, hey, I'm in a band, this is what I do, or hey, I do a lot of home recording and I need X, Y, and Z, but I'm just looking. Great. What kind of stuff do you record? What's the, get involved. Find out, because like my buddy, this guy might be making a living doing this, and he might constantly need the one guy phone call to be able to call and go, hey, you helped me out before, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If you want to go in and you want to try out a guitar, what do you need it for? Well, I need it for recording and this. Well, let me suggest to you that, this might be noisy, whatever it is, you've now become a part of the sale. And, it's so important to qualify and find out what somebody's looking for, whether they want, and who they are. And just qualifying them doesn't mean you ever disqualify somebody. Somebody's coming in, they just want to look. Great. Where'd you come from? Wow, that's a long drive. Well, listen, if you need any help, if you want any assistance, just let me know. I'm here. Here's my card. Whatever. I don't care. Go take your time. But just let them know that there's somebody there that's willing to answer some questions for them. The guy drove a while, or maybe he didn't. Maybe whatever. You don't know. And however you spark up the conversation, it doesn't matter. But somebody's walking into your store. They either need something or they want to look at something. Find out what it is. Guy walks into a store. He's looking for a Fender Bass 6. Right? Now there's a conversation. Maybe, I love the Bass 6. Aerosmith used it on this song, and whatever it is. What do they use it on? Back in the Saddle. Aerosmith used it on Back in the Saddle. It's a great instrument. A lot of fun. You're not having a conversation about music. It's now a couple of guys talking music. It's a much better conversation to have. And that's one of the other things. And it is nothing wrong with asking for the sale. Are you buying it today? Are you looking for something today? What can I help you with? Find out right away. Are you looking for something today? Nah. All right, cool. Doesn't mean you have to walk away. You can still kind of help the guy and do what you got to do. The point is there's so much business just sitting there online that do nothing. That if you run a brick and mortar shop and you're going to sit and do nothing, you become obsolete. This is why you go into these big box stores and there's nothing there. Because they can't stock anything and nobody there has their thumb on the pulse because no one's talking to anybody. Nobody knows what people want. You go into a store certain stores, and there's 15 guitar stands there, and you're like, well, who the hell told you to, because some company makes 15, they bought all 15. Well, you're just making it confusing. You have to know the business. You have to have your thumb on the pulse. You need to qualify the person coming in. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I used to manage my shop, which was West LA Music, somebody would call in and they would ask if something was in stock. Well, we dealt with phone calls all day from all over the world. What am I going to tell you if it's in stock for? If you need it and you're living in New Jersey, yeah, it's in stock. It's in stock at Fender. I'm going to drop ship it to you. What do you care? I want to know who you are, why you need it. Let's get you the right instrument. Let me send it to you. Number one, so it doesn't come back. But the second thing about it, and the most important thing about it, is that the person is happy. They want to give you their money. They don't walk, what's that line in Glengarry Glen Ross? They don't walk on the lot less they're willing to spend, less they're willing to pay. They come in, they want, whether it's let's say it's a guitar pedal, which is why when I ran a shop, I wanted always to have hundreds of guitar pedals, because a guitar pedal's a Friday night purchase. You got paid, people come into the store, they have a gig that weekend, there's a pedal they had in mind, they want to try it, they're looking for a new sound. Whatever it is, the pedal, you want to, number one, know your pedals, know what they do, know how they are, and, and help them. And get them what they want. Let them walk out of the store with what they want at the best, whether they even know what they want or they don't. Guy comes in, he wants to buy a certain fuzz. Let's say he wants to buy brand A, and brand A you find to be really noisy and not really that great. You carry it because you have to carry it, because it's one of those lines that people are going to want it regardless of what you think of it, and that's fine. But you can then show them B and C and D and say, well, this is what you like, but I think this one's a little bit better, this is much better, and this is the best. And the prices don't have to coincide with what you just said. You can find, in fact, I'll give him a plug because I think the guy makes great stuff. Mike Vickery at Vic Audio makes an unbelievable 73 Rams head fuzz, and you can't beat the price. I think it's like between it was under 140. I think it was like 130 shipped or something like that. It's fantastic. So there's lots of great stuff out there that you can get and now if I turn a customer on to that and I'm excited about it, and then I go and I get the customer excited about it, he goes home, he plays it, and he loves it. Well, guess what? That guy now is going to be my guy. He's going to be committed to my store, come to me for things. This is the business you've decided to get into. And the reason I'm doing this whole video is because I can't stand the, there's a twofold to it. I can't stand the attitude of people like, oh, the internet's stealing the business. Well, it's not stealing the business. It's taking the business that you don't want. And you don't want any business because you think that asking somebody their name, phone number, where they go, what are they using their instrument for, and who they are is car salesman. That's pathetic. You shouldn't be in sales if you think qualifying a customer is a negative. You should just get out of the business. Close your store. I know you've already closed one. Close your other one and call it a day. Go home. Oh, I'm sorry. You're making your money off of moms who want to buy their kid their first instrument. Well, fine. That's what you are then. That's your shop. Take the good stuff off the wall and call it a day. I mean, it's irritating to me as all hell. Because and this also goes to the whole thing about making a deal. If a guy comes in and he wants to buy the brand new Professional Series Strat in that drab olive green with a rosewood fingerboard and whatnot, as this happened to a friend of mine recently who's a beginner. The guy starts trying to talk him into the maple fingerboard because of it sounds better, it's brighter. And I said, well, that's a load of bullshit. Plug them both in, you can't hear the difference. Yes, acoustically, the maple's going to be brighter, but who cares? But the bottom line is my buddy liked the feel of the rosewood, and he liked the look, and he was a beginner. So who cares? Just give the guy what he wants. And they had both. Well, they had to order. They had the maple one, which is why he was trying to sell it. And then he was going to order. He said he could have it to him in a day or so. So I told him to call Sweetwater. I said, look, that place, they do a big inspection of the instrument before they send it to you. They've always been great to me. They're nice guys. They're the best at the online business, in my opinion. And I mean, that's all everything in this video is my opinion. I'm here to, what's the word I'm looking for? To give you my opinion, and you can either take it or tell me to go F myself. But the bottom line is somebody comes in, they want the guitar, they want an amp, they want something, and you got all these prices, these street prices. Work a deal. Make the guy happy. Especially if somebody comes in and they're like, listen, I want this guitar and then I want this amp. And you look at the amp and the amp's been on the floor for 4 years. Nobody's bought that amp. You can't then go look at that amp and figure out what the cost is on that amp. You can't look at the cost and go, well, we've got $400 into that amp. That amp's been paid for. And this is something that drives me bananas with stores. And maybe 4 years is not enough. Maybe 5. When a customer walks into a store, they want to see the constant turning of inventory. The more your inventory is moving, the more rapidly they're going to come in to look. Because if you go into a music store and it's all the same, and then you go in a month later and it's all the same, well, now you know that a month difference is not soon enough. But if you go into a music store and it's different after a month, you're going to go in after 2 weeks and be like, oh, wow, it's still even different. Like, they moving inventory. This is a place that's doing business. They're getting people excited seeing new different things. So if you have a piece that's in your store for 4 or 5 years, and this goes right back to the acoustic guitar thing, get rid of it. Now, you paid for that guitar in the first year that you bought that guitar. That year, you made profits, right? The next year, you're going to make profits again. But that guitar is not factored into the cost. That guitar is already bought and paid for. And now, as an inventory piece, you're getting taxed on it. You're better off blowing it out as a loss leader and putting it together. So I suggest after every, once a month or once every 6 months, figure out what's been in the store too long, put it as a loss leader and sell it below cost, especially if it's been discontinued. Make deals. Get people excited about coming into your store. Another thing is you've got to have the knowledge of things. You should know, I did a video, one of my first videos, it was actually my second one, on acoustic guitar strings. If you don't know the difference between phosphor bronze and 80-20 bronze, go online and look this stuff up. This is your trade. This is what you're doing for work. Go in with a little bit of knowledge. It won't kill you. In fact, it's only going to help you. The whole bottom line is why I feel that these stores suffer is, number one, nobody's qualifying anybody. So people are just running around rampant. I walk into a store around here and I see people, shopping, sitting there playing, and then the salesman will just pop his head and be like, hey, if you need anything, let me know. And then I see them just grab it and ring them in. And it's like, God, like the lunatics are running the asylum. So clearly, after you've qualified the customer and we're past the qualified stage, it's you better know your business. You better know your gear. And by that, I mean give people the options and know the options. If something's a good guitar, if something might not work for them, find out what kind of music they're doing. Find out, find out who they like. It's just, there's so much to do in the qualifying, but you really have to know your gear, and you should study your gear and know what different things do. Get involved with dealing with pedals. But the main important thing to me is work out deals. Negotiate. Get people excited. Just think, the person that you let walk out that door without buying anything is spending $40,000 a year at another store. Could be. You don't know. One of the things you never do is you never put your own circumstance into somebody else. So when somebody comes in and they're asking about a very expensive guitar, to them it might not be expensive. You don't know anything about them. I can tell you that in the stores that I've walked into recently, they don't know anything about the people coming in. They do a visual check, and I can tell you right now, some people that have the craziest money dressed just in jeans and a t-shirt and never anything more, sweatpants sometimes, they've given up. They don't care. They're successful. They just walk in. I had a guy one time coming, and he was, I think when I qualified, he was a doctor, didn't really play, just wanted to have a beautiful instrument so he could noodle and keep it around. And so he was interested in the Gibson Les Paul. I showed him a couple, but then I showed him a really, really nice PRS. And I opened it up, and he looked at it, and he was like, oh, that's the guitar I want. That's it. And I was, I just was like, okay, well, this one's like $8,000. He was like, yeah, great, let's go. Pulls out a black Amex, done. You don't know what somebody has or what their value of money is, how they look at it. You don't know. And you can't really judge. To me, that's spending crazy money on an electric guitar. I would never. But it doesn't stop me from, because obviously I'm not in that financial situation, but these guys who have that situation, to them it's like, it's like dropping $200 on a Squire. They don't care. But they wanted something nice, and he got it. The main thing is you have to own up and you have to take responsibility for what your job is. If you're in the business and you're in the business to sell instruments and you're there to do somebody a service, then you have to be that service. If you're going to let the guy sit and decide this is the guitar he wants, I can tell you right now, more than likely, which is why a lot of stores have a 30-day, they're bringing it back. And they're bringing it back because the person who sold it to them didn't do the right job of qualifying the person to find out what it is they wanted. Why it didn't work for them. Why it did work for them. So, I mean, and of course, another thing is when you're out there and you're talking to people, and you're out there and you're communicating, you're shaking hands, you're not just sitting there on your computer. When you walk into a certain store, I'm not going to say which one it is, but everyone's head's buried. Then they're like, oh, if you need anything, I'm like, yeah, buddy, I need something from you like a hole in the head. It's, if you go and you talk and you get involved in a conversation with somebody, you kind of can get your thumb on the pulse of what are people looking for. If you did that, and if manufacturers did that, then Gibson wouldn't have put in those robot tuners on every damn guitar last year or 2 years ago, whenever the hell they did that fiasco. Because they would have realized that nobody wants the Blaupunk radio in the 1955 Corvette. They want the original old radio, you know what I mean? They want, and you come up with a new model when they had the robot guitars. Those were cool. They were Les Pauls with like really new colors, like hot rodded colors. They had a little different look to them with the ultra white binding. That was cool. When they came up with the robot guitar as a separate instrument, great. Then all of a sudden it's like, no, every guitar is going to get this because we know the future. We know what people want. No, you don't. You don't have a clue because you're selling to stores and you're telling them what people want instead of listening to what people want. You listened this year when you took them off because your sales went down the toilet. So, I mean, it's like you really got to talk to people and find out what it is they're looking for. I did a thing yesterday on a Relic Stratocaster, and some people are like always, oh, I think those are so stupid. Yeah, they're so stupid. Fender can't make them fast enough. People are buying them like crazy. So while you think it's stupid, so many people are buying them and love them. Who cares what you think? I don't. And if you love them, I still don't care. Because as a store, I'm going to carry everything. Now, in today's market, there's so many great builders. I mean, Jim Tyler makes a great Strat. Tom Anderson made a great Strat. John Suhr makes a great Strat. G&L makes a great Strat. Fender's very capable of making a great Strat. Trying to think who else there is. There's a guy, Rebel, Relic Guitars makes a great Strat. So many people can make a great Strat. So in the nutshell, you got to figure out what it is you want to carry, who you want to represent, what do you want to do. You know, there's a lot of great instruments out there, and you can really be that store that helps people out. Now, there's another store in this area that I find very interesting because I call it the Heavy Metal Hero store. And it's like, it seems like every instrument, every amplifier in there is based for the Heavy Metal Hero, but very high end. And as a person that worked and did this business, I find that the high end people are more for the vintage style and not so much for the funky shapes. I think if you're going to have maybe one or two brands, excuse me while I take a sip of water. I think if you're going to carry one or two brands of a high end shred style instrument, heavy metal guitar, I think it's great. I think if you're devoting your whole thing to it, I think you're kind of like missing the mark. It's it's not a it's not a very smart business plan, in my opinion. Whatever. Everyone can do what they want to do. I do think you should stock a lot of pedals. If you're in the LA area, I think Ken Daniels at True Tone Music does a fantastic job of understanding who is in that neighborhood, what they want, how to help them. He has the pedals, he has the vintage stuff, he has the new stuff. The guy gets it. I love Ken because I think Ken is one of those guys that is doing. He has his thumb on the pulse, so he knows what a music store should look like, and he's right in Santa Monica there on I think it's Santa Monica Boulevard, right between 7th and Lincoln. It's a great shop. There's not many times you get to see great shops, you know. And the thing I want to say is, and Ken is great. He works out a deal. He's not there to. He understands the business. He's one of the smartest guys in the business. I really have a lot of respect for him. He's got an in-house repair guys doing things. You want to change the pickups, he gets it. He gets it. Another clever little thing that manufacturers try to do as well, because they know that people want a deal and whatnot, is they make one-off guitars. Well, not one-off. They'll do runs of guitars for companies. So you got like Wildwood Guitars. West LA did it as well. We ordered the Ultimate Strat. And so it was like a 50s body, 60s neck. So it's like all these appointments that the store makes up. And the reason for these models, which is a brilliant idea, is so you can't be shopped. So if you have a store and you're in Massapequa, New York, and you want to have the Massapequa Strat, and it's whatever appointments you decide you want, if somebody wants that guitar, well, they can't be shopped. So there's less room for a deal because there's less people carrying the same thing. That's the mentality behind it, which certain stores, like I think Wildwood does a really good job with it because they actually go after their thumb on the pulse of what actually people have asked for, and not so much just for the reason of not being able to be shopped. But the thing is you shouldn't really worry about people wanting to shop anyways, because if you have the attitude like, listen, I'm doing the work, I'm reading up on everything, I understand, I'm invested in what I'm doing, you're gonna have this feeling like I'm the best guy in town for this stuff. Buying a Strat from me is, it's going to be looked over, it's going to be set up, and that's kind of like what Sweetwater does. Like, they have their, I think it's 55 points, whatever they call it, but whatever. It's a brilliant thing because they really are saying, hey, listen, we're special, and we think you're special, and we're going to sell you this instrument, and it's the street price you're going to pay, unless of course you can work out something, but for the most part. But they're like, but this is what we do, and we go the extra mile for you, and that's great. But the thing is, people want a deal. And if you're running a mom and pop type shop, or you're running a brick and mortar shop, you should be there to be able to negotiate. And if you've taken the negotiating thing away from people, you're just giving your store away to somebody else because they're going to go somewhere else and talk to somebody because everybody carries Strats. Everybody carries, well, not everyone carries Les Pauls, but there's enough Gibson dealers where you see online there's no negotiating because it's part of the deal of the minimum advertised price. You can't advertise unless you get into an email conversation and it's private. Now you can negotiate the price. However, in a map situation, when you're advertising it online, you can't discount it. You can't do anything in that public forum because then you would be advertising that you're selling it for less. But when somebody walks into your store and you've taken your salespeople's ability away to negotiate that, well then you're just saying to them, go shop online. You don't need to come into my store. Because number one, what value are you giving the customer? Are you giving it with the knowledge your people have? No, they don't have any knowledge. I walked into a store and I asked the guy, why is that used Strat so much money? It's a Mexican Strat. Guy says to me, oh, it's a 50s. I'm looking at it, I go, no, it's not. Oh, and he starts telling me, like, every time I said no, he would come up with a different reason. And I was like, no, that's not right either. People don't know. They just don't know, and it's your fault you don't know. Learn. If you're going to be in that business, learn the business. If somebody wants a Telecaster and you're selling, there's, like I said, I talked about Strats, but G&L makes a great telly. Rebel Relic makes a great telly. There's so many. John Suhr makes a great telly. What are they looking for? Figure out what they want. Like I said, it's the easiest business in the world. If you are running a cigar shop and a cigar smoker comes in, that guy's browsing not because he wants to see what you have. He wants to find a cigar that he hasn't tried or one that he has and he knows he likes, but he wants to have a smoke. And he wants to enjoy it, and he wants you to, if you can help him, he wants you to help him. Maybe you know something about that off-brand Nicaraguan cigar. Maybe, maybe. He doesn't know. But if all of a sudden you don't say anything and you're like, yeah, everything's in that glass thing, he's going to be like, all right, and maybe he'll get something, maybe he won't. But if you're the guy that says, hey, listen, you want to see something cool? This one here is made by, and you know the factory and you know a little bit about everything, he's going to be like, oh, this guy's knowledgeable. I'm going to come here for smokes. That's what you want. That's what you're in business for. Otherwise, if not, close up shop, call it a day, and just complain the economy killed you. It's just annoying. Yeah. And like I said, just know the business, understand, somebody wants to buy a stand, carry good, better, best, or studio live, home, whatever it is, make sure that it's simple, that the customer can come in and buy what the customer wants to buy. I had a friend of mine once, he called me up, I was driving, it was a Patriots game, halftime, and at halftime I used to always drive down to Papa Cristo's in downtown LA for a gyro and a spanakopita. Oh, it's great. On my way home, my buddy calls me and he says, hey, listen, are you near Westwood Music? I'm like, I'll be passing it off the freeway in about 2 minutes. I'll pop off. Are you there? He's like, yeah. He goes, I want you to hear something. So I go in. He's trying out a McPherson guitar. 3 of them he has in this room. The salesman put 3 in the room with him, and he's playing them. And I walked in, and all 3. They're gorgeous sounding guitars. Things are great. And anyways, so he's like, I want to get one of these, and the one he kept asking me which one I think's better, and here I am. I'm not there as a salesperson. I'm there as his buddy, and I'm like, they're all fantastic sounding. Which one do you like the way it feels and looks? Which one gets you excited to want to play? And he was like, well, this one. I'm like, there we go. Let's go. He goes out and peels off. I think it was over $7,000. I was like, he does very well, but it was expensive. But and he got a deal. He said he wanted to pay cash. He was going to take it home today. What can the best they can do? And the guy came up with a number, and he says, all right, let's do it. That's the business. That's what you're there to do. You're there to help people, and it's not helping somebody by asking them where they drove from, what do they need it for, What are they using it for? What kind of stuff do they do? What's their band play? How often they're gigging? These are not questions that are prying into somebody's personal thing. You're there to perform a job. You're there to help somebody. And you want to be the guy for somebody. I can't even tell you how many people. Now, I've been out of the retail business since 2011. Oh, 12. Beginning of 2012. And I can't tell you how many times people still to this day will text me, message me, ask me advice about stuff, and I have no problem with it. It's like I get it, and I'll even tell them where to get it online because you don't even have to deal with anybody because you're just going to be sitting there, um, dealing with somebody else who will tell you a different story and a different song and dance, and because everyone has an opinion, and I'm trying not really so much to use my opinion on like what I like as to what they're looking for because it's not about me. I play big fat V necks. I played that Epiphone, and it recorded better than my Taylor. I had a Taylor 710 CE that Bob Taylor gave me. So my first year at West LA Music, we did this competition on Taylor was doing a big thing, a promotion, whereas if you sell X amount of dollars in Taylor, you get a percentage of that money towards a guitar. I had $4,000 in points, and I think I came in second in the nation behind a store that pulled all their points together. But Bob gave me a 710 CE. My rep at the time was a guy named Steve Bernstein, and Bernie's awesome. I believe he's still working for Eastman Guitars now. He's a great guy and a great player. So, anyways, and I loved that guitar and I would play it. And then I ended up selling it because somebody offered me a lot of money for it and I didn't play it enough. And I actually, in the studio, would start using this Epiphone all the time. It mics really well. In fact, I'll post. I used it on a session we did for the X Factor TV show, and I'll post that. It's like I overdubbed 3 acoustics and 3 electrics, and it was very cool. I'll put that song up at the end of the video. But anyways, this is a long one, but it was something I'm passionate about. And if you if you're in this business and this is what you want, this is you got to know your gear. You got to know. Like right now, I'm using when you hear me play into the computer here, I'm playing into a Fender Mustang 2 amp that I USB in, and what happens? It's got somewhat of a little latency that I can't get rid of. So what I do is I add latency into the background tracks so they match up. So when I'm hearing it, it lines up. But this is something I would never have bought in this amp. I played in a country band, and the pedal steel player left it at the rehearsal space, and I called her up, and she was like, "I'll sell it to you." So I was like, the price was right. I bought it, and now I love it because it works perfect for this. But if I ever walked into a store and someone told me that I needed this, for this show that I do here, I've asked 3 different people. One person at Sweetwater, a Guitar Center, and I'm trying to think who the other person was. I might have been a rep, but I can't remember what company it was. But either way, I wanted to use multiple USB devices and use them all into a sound. And they all told me, no, I got to go out and buy this, what the heck's it called? The Focusrite Scarlett, which I have in the box still over here. So I used the Scarlett on like the first video. It put stuff into mono. It like put it to a left channel, right channel. It wasn't right for me. I didn't like it. I still have it in the box if somebody wants to buy it. What ended up happening was I ended up finding a program called Voice Meter Banana. And it works as a multiple input. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I was like, not one of these people know this thing exists. These are like the experts at like knowing all about podcasts and everything. And I was just like, you know what? It's just par for the course. and my own fault that I didn't look this stuff up first and just do it on my own, because I should have realized that in a business of knuckleheads. Now, there are some great, if you're on the West Coast and you're into like pro audio and all that stuff, there's some great guys in the pro audio business. I don't know if Derek Schneider's still in it. Derek used to work with me at West LA. He went to Guitar Center. Derek's brilliant, knows his stuff. Also, Joe Topier at Westlake Audio. I mean, he's awesome. The guy just knows his stuff. He's like just one of the most concise sales guys that can really get into what you need and get you dialed in at the best price. They're just great guys. I can't say enough good things about them. One of the legends of the business was one of my dearest friends, Mark Spiewak, and he passed in 2012, which in my opinion led to the full demise of West LA music, because Mark was such a passionate salesperson and really was the lifeblood of that place. I mean, people would come for him. I mean, everybody from like Jackson Browne, Tom Petty, Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney, they would all go in there to see Mark. And I remember Mark was selling speakers once to Ringo Starr, and he went over there, and I guess Joe Walsh and Paul McCartney was sitting on his sofa, and he stayed over there for like 3 hours hanging out. It was like the time of his life. But that's what Mark did, and everybody knew Mark was super passionate about that. And if you want to be successful in anything you do, I mean, some people, they get into this business, and they're like, well, I'm in it. You know, at the time, I was also doing a lot of session work. So here I am, I'm a session guy, I'm a working guitar player, and I'm managing a store. Every job that I did while doing it, though, I did it as seriously and with the same passion, because you have to love what you do. And it's like, so if I'm going to go into the store and be like, oh, I remember when I started in January of 2006. Mark Spiewak called me up and says, you got to get in here. I had just finished recording Aaron Ann's record, and I had time off. And so I went in there, and within 3 months, I became the GM. I became the store manager. And then by the end of that year, I was the GM. I got to work with some great people. And it was very, I was very passionate about what we were doing. We're helping people. I remember one time, you can't help everyone. You can't, some battles you can't win. I had a guy come in one time. He was doing a session over at the Village, and he came over with Jeff Greenberg, and he says, we're looking for a Fender tube amp sound. We really want a Vibrolux. And I was like, I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't do the Vibrolux. If you're looking for that clean, and I tried to explain to them, use a pedal. I would have even lent them my Diamond. I have a Diamond tremolo pedal, and use like a hot rod. And I had my reasons, and I explained to them. I think it's a quieter amp for recording. Pause. Back. I think it's a quieter amp for recording, number one. And number two, I think the Vibroluxes have a lot of noise to them. And, it's like they're a dirty amp, even though they're not as clean as you think. They're not like these glassy clean. And that was what he was describing to me. And I'm like, well, you can get that kind of because there's more headroom in the hot rod. Anyway, so what did they do? They bought the Vibrolux. This was at like 11:30 in the morning. By 3:30 in the afternoon, they came back and they were like, can we take that hot rod now? And I was like, I told you. You can't win. I had to go do the whole cancel transaction, everything. It's just, it was a pain in the neck. But at least I knew ahead of time. And at that point, Jeff would always call Don, the owner, to get me to go, what would I recommend and whatnot. They were good friends, so he didn't have to go directly to me, but he would go to my boss. And I won his trust. Now, sometimes you're not going to win people's trust. I remember one time a guy came in, he bought a Strat, I set it up for him, and he hated the setup. He wanted it floating. But I asked him, do you want me to set it up the way I set up, or how do you like it? He didn't care. I said, well, I'll set up the way I set up, and he hated it. And after that, he was like my arch enemy. He was like, oh, this guy's an idiot. It's like, if I'm an idiot, why am I touching your guitar? I asked you what you wanted. You said you didn't care. So anyways, but however, as much as an idiot as I was, he still got the DiMarzio pickups that I told him to get, and he loved them. And at that point, I think he was just dealing with Sean. But people are funny, and whatever. All you can do is do the best you can do. And I think people need to take their job with serious. I think if you're going to, like I said, you want to run a brick and mortar shop, get out there and win people's business. Don't just sit there and be the guy that just takes them, be a cashier with a headset on and be like, please drive up. This isn't Wendy's. Anyways, I'm going to leave you with that recording of that guitar that I did. Anyways, I know this was a long one. I hope you have a great afternoon. It's raining here, and I have a student in an hour and a half. So for now, very good.